I'm sorry, Grace.
All right, so now we'll introduce Dr. Grace Chan, who's going to go over for the second time our 25-26 school budget. There is a couple of revisions and a couple of things I know that Dr. Chan wanted to highlight, so welcome.
Good evening, Board of Ed, Dr. Luff, Putnam Valley community. Thank you for joining us again. I'll try to make this a little different from last time, so I wore different glasses this time. The district's goal is to present a proposed budget to the Board of Ed that is balanced. What that means is that the expenses that we decide that we need for the 25-26 year has to equal the revenue that we believe is coming in. One of the first part of the formulas that I used to work on for the district is the fact that we have a tax cap. So I wanted to show you what the tax cap looks like. This is the formula set out by the state. And the district likes to simplify it so that the community can understand what this means. According to this chart, we start with the prior year's tax levy, and then we're given a tax base growth factor, which is specific to Putnam Valley. And that growth factor reflects the quantity change in taxable property values in the base year. The factor is based on actual physical changes to taxable property, such as new constructions of home and stores and offices, and not merely the change of the assessed value of the existing unchanged taxable property. After we multiply that out, we get $41,413,000, and to that we subtract prior year capital exclusions, which is a number of items that go into that line. For last year, it was $1,204,000. We come up with an adjusted prior year tax levy that's $40,208,000. To that, we will multiply the allowable levy growth factor, which is the lesser of the CPI, or 2%. This number is the number that you actually read in the newspaper when you hear about 2%. When we multiply that out, we have a tax levy limit before the exclusions for the current year, which comes out to $41,012,000. To that, we will add the current year capital exclusions, which again is a number of line items that come up, and net to the number of $2,195,000. That comes out to the maximum allowable tax levy limit, which is $43,208,000. That maximum percent change in tax levy is 4.54%. Historically, Putnam Valley does not go to the maximum allowable. This year, we're actually going a lot lower. We're going to a 2.99%, which would give us a proposed tax levy limit of $42,568,000. This chart will show you the cumulative change in the real property taxes between what we are allowed to tax, which is 4.54%, to what we're actually taxing, which is 2.99%. This is a cumulative change for the next few years. This is the loss of money that the district would have been able to tax the taxpayers. This chart will show you the tax comparisons between ourselves and 6 neighboring districts. As you can see, we're right in the middle. We're not the tallest, we're not the highest tax cap this year, and we're not the lowest. We will tax you what we actually feel that we need. This is another way of looking at some of the revenues that would come into the district. And we're comparing ourselves to 6 other districts. And I'm highlighting the fact that the difference between the last year's state aid and this year shows to be $411,368. But actually it's not, because there's an amount in there of $410,400, which we are not allowed to use except for the full-day kindergarten conversion. Whether we use that or not, we subtract that out from the 411, and the difference between last year's state aid and this year is really only $968,000.
I wanted to highlight something on that slide, and its comparison to the slide before. So the slide before, we talk about the tax cap comparison for neighboring districts, and then you look at what districts are slated to receive regarding state aid changes. Putnam Valley is not the lowest in terms of what we're receiving, but when you look at the amount of aid some of these districts are receiving, and compare that to why their tax levy is lower, that will start to connect a lot of dots. So Yorktown is receiving 2.7 million more in state aid. Lakeland, 3.6 million more in state aid. Mayapack, 1.6 million more in state aid. Putnam Valley, $968. So there's a reason why we're being as fiscally responsible as possible, but we're not able to offer a 1% or a point something percent increase because state aid is simply not making up the difference for us, whereas in other cases, it is helping districts make up the difference. So I just wanted to point out the correlation between this slide and the previous one.
Thank you. Also, one other thing I wanted to point out, that this state aid estimate is based on the executive budget. The legislative budget doesn't come out until April 1st, and sometimes even after that.
Grace, one thing real quick. Just to clarify, it's full-day pre-kindergarten, not full-day
Yes,
kindergarten.
sorry,
So,
yes.
I just want to, that question came up, so I just wanted to clarify.
Yes,
So,
we'll fix that. Thank you. This is a chart that will show you the state aid breakdown between ourselves and the 6 neighboring districts. Sometimes people like to see this comparison in a picture, and sometimes they like to see it in a graph. The reason I put this chart in here is to show you the portion of that tax cap formula that is the allowable growth, which is the middle column, is never higher than 2%. But when you look at the CPI, for example, in the year 2023 to 2024, the CPI was 8%. The current CPI as of March 23rd is 2.8%. It's still higher than the limit that we're allowed in the middle column, which is part of that formula to figure out the tax cap.
Dr. Chen, though, let's compare apples to apples. The core CPI came in at 3%, closer to 3.1%. And that's what we should really judge it at, because the regular CPI includes volatile fuel costs and also the food costs, which, they impact us, but the core is truly on the money, and that's the one the Federal Reserve seems to follow more than anybody else. So in my mind, we're still under inflation with the 2.99 as the core is at 3.1.
Thank you for that. It's true, CPI is very confusing. It depends on what they're putting into that CPI when they make that comparison.
Yeah. Thank you.
This is a picture graph which shows the tax cap inflation factor versus the total tax levy. Again, sometimes people like to see this in a different format. The next 3 slides will show you the enrollment. One is for the elementary school, and the next one is for the middle school, and the last one is for the high school. These include the Garrison students that are sitting in the seats now. So I guess this might be a good time to just mention that this slide is different than the last time because we actually lost 4 Garrison students, which amounts to about $70,000 in revenue. So the district has had to change the revenue stream that's coming in order to keep the budget balanced. Here's the first picture of the revenue source, and the Garrison number is on the bottom. It is now 420,113. It still represents 1% of all the revenues because we're rounding. When I subtract out the school taxes and the real property taxes and the state aid, then the Garrison piece of the local revenue is about 33%, and that's a decrease from my last time slide in March 13th, which was 37%. This slide is just showing you the numbers again in revenues as opposed to a chart. And this is the first place where I try to make people understand that if we remove the transfer to capital line, which is $1,209,000 from the budget to budget percentage is actually 2.58%. That transfer to capital line is inflating the budget to budget percent increase to look like it's 4.5%, 58%.
That's really, really important.
Yes.
That point you just, I mean, the 2.5% is the actual, in my mind,
Yes.
budget-to-budget increase. Because that capital fund, the transfer, you're pulling that from the reserve, which is already there. So yeah, that's
Right.
the real
So
It's-
budget-to-budget.
That's the amount of money that we can use for the operating portion of the budget. The 1,209,000 is transferred to capital. When the budget has passed, hopefully it will pass, then we actually do a direct transfer out of that, and it's no longer in the operating budget. So what remains is only 2.5%, 58% increase from the last year's budget.
Exactly. So
Thank you.
that would be the amount that I would stress, the 2.58%, really.
So this came up in the meeting we had prior to the board meeting, the community question Q&A session. And it's important to emphasize why we break this out, and I think you guys both touched on this point. The district, that's within our allowable tax levy, so we could have taken that $1 million+ and put it into our operating expenses and used it for staffing and programs, or we could have taken it out of the budget entirely. But the reality is the work still needs to get done. What we're attempting to do here, just like we did with the high school roof a few years ago, is we're attempting to meet the community sort of halfway and accomplish whatever capital improvements we can within our existing operating budget. So we're not asking the community for additional money, and we're not borrowing money to complete this work, which many in the community have emphasized the district to not do. To pay for stuff up front and not borrow money. And this is just sort of a case in point of one of the many ways we are trying to be fiscally responsible. We're completing work. We could have easily taken this $2+ million of work and added it to the capital project. We could have paid interest rates on it for 15 years. We could have used this money in our operating budget for something else, but we didn't, because we think this is the most fiscally prudent way to accomplish work and minimize the amount of money we have to borrow, minimize the amount of money that the community has to approve while still completing necessary infrastructure work. So we could have not done it, and if we had not done it, it would have been 2.58%, but the work still needed to get done, and it would have gotten done in another way, probably a less fiscally responsible manner, which would have incurred interest and required another vote and increased the cost of the outstanding capital project. So just wanted to try to emphasize that for the community.
When the community votes on our budget, this is a line item transfer to capital, and that allows us to spend the money on what we're using it for in this budget. It's important to understand that that line also gets state aid.
Right.
This is a slide which I'm using 6 neighboring districts again, and everyone has to fill out a transparency report. I use the cost per student based on the transparency report. That's the green bar on top. The orange bar shows the enrollment. The transparency report excludes transportation, charter school tuition, other tuition, debt service, and other. There's a lot of ways to look at the cost per student, but as long as you're comparing apples to apples, then you'll be able to present a chart like this. I wanted to show the adopted 24-25 budget versus the proposed budget. And here we can see that it is split up between general support, instruction, transportation, employee benefits, debt service, and interfund transfer. This is one way of looking at the pieces that are in the budget. And here it is again, except these are in number forms. This is another method of showing you what's in the budget. We're required by law to show you the 3-part budget. And as you can see, we're spending most of our money in the program, the instruction, which is where you want it to be. This is a pie chart showing you similar items. This is another way of showing people who like to see the budget in a pie chart form instead of by numbers. This is another way that I like to show the budget composition. The reason is because it's interesting to see when you isolate the salaries and benefits, it represents 70.92% of the budget. And on the bottom, you'll see all the departments and all the people within the departments, and the principals helped very much this year to try to keep the prices low so that our budget could come in as low as possible, but still maintain the programs that we need. I like this chart because it shows you the delta. It shows you just the difference between the budget from one year to the other. So last year to this year, it's 2,774, but the salary and benefits alone was an increase of 2,607. Meanwhile, the school tax increase, the delta of that was only 1,237,000. These are fast facts to know. The proposed budget is $63,331,000. Our budget to budget increase is 4.58, and the proposed tax levy is 2.99. We have 3 propositions to vote on this year. The first one is the budget. The next one is the bond proposition, which I think we're going to be voting on this evening. And then there will be a third one, which shows the library vote that we're all going to vote on. These are the important dates. And before we get to other questions, I just wanted to highlight some ways that the district has been working on behind the scenes to get the numbers to as close as possible to as little amount of money that we need for the budget. In the curriculum department, they build teacher leadership capacity in-house. Whether it's possible, it's in a critical area of the curriculum to provide support as opposed to bringing in consultants or sending teachers out for extra workshops. As a result, the district has a teacher leaders support professional learning team and is very important for foundation programs. In the business office, the district established membership in the educational data services to simplify the buying process from the teacher's request to the purchase order. There's over 700 members in this turnkey cooperative procurement management program. Streamlining results in a reduction in the workload, a reduction in the cost, a maintenance compliance oversight, and it provides peace of mind because we're following the board policies. BOCES services. We leverage BOCES services to access the BOCES aid whenever it's possible. For example, when the special education services need things like tutoring, they have been satisfying this by sending out a request for proposal. When that request for proposal is expired, we will intend to look at BOCES to see if they offer any of these services, which would give us an alternative, and we would not have to do an RFP, but mainly because we would get BOCES aid back on that. Timepiece is a record attendance. The clock controller interfaces with the district's accounting human resource program, thereby eliminating the need for paper submissions and electronically capturing signatures, and approvals are captured this way. This workflow solution saves time in managing the data collection of hours worked, especially in determining the overtime payments. We have labor contracts. All the labor contracts will require a contribution to health insurance in retirement. In the athletic department, the district monitors the participation levels to ensure that all the supported teams meet the requisite interests of the students to qualify for the funding, which would include transportation and coaching stipends. Information technology. The district performs periodic auditing of all the software that they use to ensure that our licensing numbers reflect the real-life usage. The district performs its own installations 100% in-house. 2 recent examples that saved thousands of dollars was the timepiece physical installation and the physical security access control system. Similarly, the facilities department have leveraged the staff's set skills savings by using the talents of the in-house staff. Some examples of what they have done is the carbon filtration system, which saved $300,000, the elementary school modular building, which saved $200,000, the irrigation elementary school upper field, which saved $80,000, the HVAC maintenance work, which saved $150,000, the alarm system work was saved $50,000, AV wiring work was saved us $20,000, the wellness trail saved us $200,000. Elementary school bathroom upgrades was a $500,000 savings. The new grounds building was a $200,000 saving. The middle school student support suite is a $200,000 saving, and the elementary school paint job was a $50,000 savings. The last thing I just wanted to share is that I had the opportunity to see the IB presentation, and first I thought I was talking to college students, not only because they're taller than me, but just also their presentation and the way they exchange and conversation with me was really impressive. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
And
Dr.
thank you
Chen.
for those specific examples of savings, because those really help to identify, you know, and that's just an overview of ways that we can save the taxpayers' money.
Yeah, I said it at the last meeting, and I'll say it again. Your presentation is to the point, concise, and right on the money. It is one of the best budget presentations I've ever seen, and I thank you for that, Dr. Chen.
Thank you. If anyone wants more information, they're welcome to come and call on me or come to the office. We'll be happy to explain more of it.
So I do want to point out there's a slightly updated version of the presentation that I think that includes the proposition language in it. So we'll make sure that that one is posted online and made available to the community. So that was really just sort of finished today. So that version, we'll make sure that language is included on the version of this presentation that's online, so individuals can see exactly what that wording will be for those two additional propositions.
Any other questions or comments for Grace?
I'd like to just make a suggestion. I thought it was absolutely brilliant to highlight the way in which the district has really been intentional about saving money and being super responsible with taxpayer funding. Would it be possible, or just a pitch to throw it out there, I do think that the community really should have access to that information in even more than just tonight's reading of that list. It's very powerful. If we could perhaps think about an infographic to share with our community on our website, on social media, so that we can share with them all of the money, because I couldn't write it down fast enough, but if I totaled all of that money, it would probably come up to a significant amount of savings. And so I wanted to just ask if that's possible.
Yes, that's possible, and I want to give a shout out to someone named Tina who actually emailed me and asked me, can I present some things like that? So it's because she asked for it, and we do listen to the public.
Tina McKay
Very nice.
asked her to highlight some of the ways in which the district was saving money. So Grace has been working on collecting that information throughout the week, and we could certainly put it into some sort of electronic format, similar to what we did for the sustainability,
Right.
where we created those infographics showing the
Yes.
savings. We could
Yes,
work on something similar with
to that,
those.
yes. And then I understand that we have, that some of the potential Garrison students had decided that they are no longer going to attend next year. I know that you had mentioned a number for 1 year of tuition. If someone could kindly highlight just what that looks like over 4 years. And I just want to say this too, to the community. It's such a pleasure to have the Garrison students come here because of who they are, number one. I know that it just embetters our community to have more students from other districts come and enjoy the amazing resources that we have here at a zero cost to us. We have it, we can share it, and it actually really does help us financially. And so I wanted to just ask about that total over 4-year cost, what that would look like.
So it's going to be, it's a little over $70,000 the first year. We have in our contract a 2% increase for each year, so 71 for the following year, and it'll continue. So it'll be upwards of $300,000 lost by the
so-
time those students would have graduated.
That it's really important, that the community also know that. $300,000 is a significant amount of money that could be used to lower, right, what we're asking taxpayers to help us with. So just something to be considered by the community. Thank you so much.
And I'd like to say one of the things that I thought about when Grace was reading the savings and all that was done in-house is not only is it saving money, but it gives you that sense of pride in what you're doing and where you are when you've done it for yourself rather than done it as a job. I mean, it is a job, but there's a different level of pride and sense of ownership, which I think is invaluable, can't be calculated in terms of money. So, thank you. Any other questions or comments?
Thank you, Grace.